India number 1 D Gukesh takes on IM Avinash Ramesh in the second round of the Qatar Masters Open 2023. A handshake and we are ready to begin. Gukesh has the white pieces. Avinash, born in 2004, is 19 years old. Gukesh opens the game with 1 c4. The English opening is on the board. What does Avinash respond with? It's a big opportunity for Avinash in his career to play against a player of Gukesh's caliber. He goes c5. The symmetrical English is on the board. In round 1, Gukesh drew his game against Nubairshah Shaikh, another Indian IM, and it said that Indian players are generally underrated. So clearly 2286 is not something to be misled with, which is Avinash's rating. His highest elo had been 2424 in the past. So the knights come out, knight c3, knight c6, and now Gukesh continues with g3. So in general, here white's strategy is to put his bishop on this diagonal, bring out his knight and castle it out. And that's how it continues. Avinash also sort of mirrors what Gukesh is doing. He plays g6, bishop g2, and I think he'll go bishop g7 here. Yes, bishop comes out to g7. Now for Gukesh, it's a question whether to put knight on f3 or do you want to play pawn to e3 and develop your knight here. Also possible is pawn to e4, by the way, to put your knight on e2, but Gukesh goes for the standard way of developing. He plays his knight to f3. And for black, now couple of setups to know e6, e5, but Avinash goes for d6, which is also an interesting line. Here, you sometimes want to quickly develop your bishop to f5, queen d7, and try to trade off this bishop with bishop h3. Gukesh castles. Both players playing quickly out of the opening, so they are well prepared here. And now pawn comes up to e5. This is an interesting move order chosen by Avinash. He's played his pawn to e5, and now Gukesh plays d3. So the d5 square has been weakened, and generally this knight is not really angling at that square. So how do you get that knight to the d5 square is a big question. And here's the maneuver. You go knight e1, knight c2, knight e3, and then play it to d5. And Gukesh has begun this journey with his move knight e1. And then he's going to bring that knight there. So Avinash plays bishop e6. And now notice, if you continue that journey with knight c2, then black can already break in the center with d5. And that's the reason why here Gukesh cannot go knight c2 instantly. And that's the reason why he goes knight to d5. An important move, preventing black from playing his pawn to d5. And now, whoa, what's that? He's taken on d5 with his bishop. That's a move that I did not expect, because now after cd5, you parted away with one of your prized possessions in the position. That is the light squared bishop. So clearly that was not a good idea, and now Gukesh starts to get active. He plays b4, c takes b4. Well, another idea instead of b4 was to reroute your knight this way to the c4 square and start playing on the king side. But I think Gukesh likes this idea of opening up the position, because when you have the bishop pair, you want to open it up. So he now gives a check and Avinash has to block it. He blocks with the queen, and you can now pick up the pawn on b4. Queen takes b4 seems like a logical move to play. Yes, queen takes b4, and now the d6 pawn is weak. If white can get bishop a3, that's already big trouble for black in the position. So Avinash goes knight a6 and hits Gukesh's queen here. The queen has to move away, but where should you go with the queen? He goes queen to d2. Nice, interesting. The queen here is decently placed. Later on, you want to go bishop a3, knight c2, and finish your development, like connect the rooks. Black has castled. So in a way, Avinash has somehow managed to complete his development, but the quality of his pieces are not looking that great. Gukesh goes rook b1, and he knows for a fact that he is better here. So rook b1, the knight comes to the c5 square, and perhaps it's time to now hit the knight with bishop a3. That's what Gukesh can do here. Yes, he plays his bishop to a3. One thing that's quite irritating for white is that this pawn on d5 limits his bishop. That was one of the main reasons why Avinash took on d5. But sooner or later, if white can get a successful d4 in, then his central pawn majority will start to roll. It's not so easy, but Gukesh is already thinking in that direction. Imagine that if you are not careful here, already d4 might be on cards, because after ed4, knight d4, then white's position looks clearly better. But Avinash plays this fantastic move, knight a4. This is a very cool move, because he's now looking at the c3 square where Gukesh's rook will get attacked, and then he can start pushing his queenside majority there. So Gukesh goes knight e3, he moves his knight away, and now if you go knight c3, he would want to attack it with the rook. Yes, he does play knight c3, but now can we not go rook c1? Because it's important. And also notice how Gukesh's last move, knight e3, defended his d5 pawn twice. So now this pawn is no longer hanging. He does play rook b c1, and now the knight has to move away. There's no way to defend that knight. So knight b5 seems to be on cards. Knight b5 attacking the bishop on a3. And what does white do next? Well, one way is to put your bishop on b4 perhaps. No, but bishop b2 just makes so much more sense. Once again, the idea could be to push a4 and then try for d4 break. But you can see how Avinash is looking at that square. Rook takes on c1. He takes the rook. Gukesh has 50 minutes on the clock. We have reached 20 moves. Avinash has 37 minutes on the clock here. Rook takes c1, and Gukesh is thinking about with which piece to recapture. Of course, it's logical to take with the rook. He takes rook takes c1. And now black may want to trade another rook, but I think Gukesh will avoid it with placing his knight on c4, and so he goes knight c8, and maybe his plan is that he wants to put his knight on b6 so that whenever Gukesh's knight comes to c4, that can be challenged. And at the same time, if he gets knight c3, knight b6 to a4, that would be very cool. Okay, Gukesh puts his knight on the c4 square, a nice square, and Avinash offers a trade. Of course, you don't want to take this as Gukesh, because then the a2 pawn becomes weak. So Gukesh goes queen a5, and he tells Avinash, please take it here. If you take here, I will take with my rook, and then I have nice pieces, and that's exactly what has happened. Avinash takes the knight on c4, and now Gukesh can take it back with his rook. Yes, rook takes c4 has been played. White's pieces are extremely active here. And maybe now for Gukesh with the knight gone, e3, d4 could be an idea. Bishop f6 is a nice move. Maybe if you can activate your bishop this way on the diagonal, black's bishop would start breathing new life in the position. But Gukesh already is ready to block that diagonal with e3. Good move there. So pretty good quality chess being played here. Bishop d8 played to kick the queen away. The queen has to move off, but where? He goes queen b4, keeps the queen in that zone. And as we've been mentioning now, a4 and d4 is on the card. So there's a positional threat here. But for Avinash, it's not so easy to stop it. He goes a6. And, well, a6, maybe that move didn't particularly make too much sense, because you kind of give away the b6 square where your bishop could sit. But a4 played by Gukesh, and now the knight, he wanted to go knight a7 perhaps. Knight a7, knight c8, knight b6, something like that. He goes knight a7, but I think the time has come where the break which was waiting to be made is played. Yes, Gukesh goes d4, and suddenly this bishop opens up, and along with the support of this bishop, Gukesh is completely better. Pawn takes pawn, but now what a nice position white has. Firstly, he has more space. Secondly, he has the bishop pair. And now with bishop d4, you can see that this bishop's diagonal is very powerful. If you just drop the bishop back, bring your queen here, they could create an extremely powerful battery on the long diagonal. a5 played by Avinash. He is looking for a very interesting way to get counterplay, and which is that after queen b3, he wants to perhaps go b5, and he plays it. He plays his pawn to b5, and now he has his own counterplay brewing, because after ab, which Gukesh has taken, the a pawn is a passer, also supported by the rook, and Gukesh's bishop is not doing much here. So is this position getting a bit double-edged? Queen takes b5. If you take the queen, knight b5, I believe black has solved all his problems. In order to take advantage of the slightly weakened position of the black king, you need the queens on the board. That's why queen c2. Great understanding shown by Gukesh. Avinash goes back, and now this is typical Gukesh move. Rook c6. He's like, if you take here, I will take back and then put my bishop there and have great compensation. So Avinash does not take it. He goes knight b5 after this bishop, but Gukesh saves that bishop. He goes rook bishop a1. The knight moves back on c7, and this is where now the long diagonal is going to come into the picture. Queen b2 is what Gukesh can try, and he plays it. Yes, it's mate in one threatened here. f6 needs to be played. He plays his pawn to f6, but now the queen can enter in. White is doing really well. Gukesh moves in with his queen. You can see how slowly and steadily he's built up the pressure. If you now play a4, I'll take the knight, and I think I'll take the rook here. So that's the reason why he goes queen c8, offering a trade of queens. Gukesh is more than happy. He takes it because now he can take this pawn if needed, but Gukesh is first like, the pawn will be taken at the right time. For now, I need to bring my bishop into the game. He plays bishop f1, rook b8 to activate the rook down the b file. But now Gukesh takes the first pawn, rook takes d6, and the pawns are all falling. Bishop takes f6 is the threat. A pawn does look still a bit scary, but it's under control. King f7 played. Can Gukesh go for a check? I think if you give a check, king e8, perhaps the rook might get misplaced. So one of the things that top players always do is keep their pieces on good squares. So bishop d4 has been played, bishop e7, attacking the rook. But I think this is now the end of the game, because now Gukesh can go rook d7, hit the knight. Once the knight moves, he can pin the bishop and win it. And that is what he has. 2 minutes left for his move. It's the 40th move here, so they are going to get 30 minutes more. It's the 41st move now. Rook d7 played. The knight is attacked, and next move d6 could be an idea. Also bishop c5 is coming in, so he goes knight e8, stopping d6 on the board. But I think he has no answer left for bishop c5. Gukesh has very comprehensively outplayed his opponent. Fantastic chess played by India #1, and a good fight by Avinash, but Gukesh was clearly the superior player. Right from bishop takes d5 that happened in the opening, which was a positional inaccuracy, I think Gukesh kept control throughout the game and converted this in a nice, brilliant style.